When people discuss a potential war between the US and China, Taiwan stands out as the big flashpoint. But if the US were to go all in against China, it would inevitably strike Chinese targets from locations and bases in the Philippines. That means the Philippines would be attacked in return and drawn directly into the war. This video goes further. It asks how big a threat would US forces in the Philippines pose to China? And might China one day resort to landing troops on Filipino islands instead of just striking them from afar? What would such an operation look like? And how might the US and the Philippines respond? Looking at our channel, many ask themselves, can I too make a channel with nearly 1 million subscribers? There are many factors impacting that, but one thing that certainly means a lot is having someone else to help you produce your videos more quickly. That's what our sponsor today, Agent Opus, is all about. Made by Opus Clip, it is AI software made for you creators, which enables you to make your visions come to life faster and more efficiently. It handles your inputs and turns it into scripts, collects assets, and even makes AI motion graphics and effects, turning your ideas into dynamic animations. AI can't replace human creativity, but Agent Opus can augment your work. And Opus Clip is now putting their Opus agent to the test battle, in which you too can participate by voting and even win $5,000. In the showdown, professional video editors will compete against regular creators using Agent Opus. Both sides will get the same topic and 60 minutes to create their best video. Judges are internet creators and video editors, and an ex-YouTube and Instagram employee. Another showdown will then pit Agent Opus against other brand AI video tools, using the same prompts for comparison. The contest will be shown live on December 2nd, but voting is already underway. Who do you think will win? Are AI agent hype or are they the real deal? And the best part is, everyone who casts their vote will get 2 months of Agent Opus credits and is eligible to win $5,000 in cash. Just follow the link below the video. Geography always plays a huge role in war, and to help the US defend Taiwan, the Philippines are ideally positioned, more so than Japan and its Ryukyu Islands. The Ryukyus form a long chain with Yonaguni closest to Taiwan, but the Philippines also have nearby small islands, the closest one being Itbayat. While small islands can matter greatly, larger land masses make better bases for major operations and for projecting power. Here the Philippines are much closer to Taiwan than mainland Japan. Luzon Island lies about 220 miles south of Taiwan, while Japan's Kyushu is roughly 3 times farther to the northeast. This isn't to say Japan's territory isn't vital. It's absolutely crucial if Taiwan is to hold out. But the Philippines' location gives it special importance. Both nations' territories would become battlefields if the US intervened to protect Taiwan. The difference is due to geography, distances, and Japanese military potential itself. Mainland Japan would be safe from China's incursions. Southern Ryukyus are another matter, but that's outside the scope of this video. The Philippines, however, present a more accessible and appealing target for China. Geographically, militarily, and even politically, Luzon's proximity alone makes it a major threat to China's Taiwan operations, and several other Philippine islands would be easier for China to contest. A November 2023 poll in Japan suggested that most Japanese people supported their military helping the United States in some way. In contrast, a 2024 poll in the Philippines found a large majority preferred to stay neutral, with even a small share favoring support for China. Though it is unrealistic to expect public opinion would stop the Philippine government from aiding the United States in a war with China, at least in the short term. The United States has already invested heavily in the Philippines. Their decades-long defense treaty allowed the US military to maintain a presence there. Although American forces largely withdrew after the Cold War, they have since returned to contain China. Over the past decade, the United States has worked with the Philippines to renew base access agreements. The two countries have also held numerous joint military exercises, often focused on anti-shipping missions from key islands. These include the northernmost Filipino islands, where Taiwanese planners have also participated, and Palawan Island to the southwest, near Chinese-held islands in the South China Sea. Units involved in such exercises included HIMARS launchers capable of firing anti-ship ballistic missiles, Nemesis launchers firing NSM missiles, and the new Typhoon missile battery that can launch Tomahawks. The only other Typhoon battery deployed by the US is in Japan. Make no mistake, the United States has been strengthening its positions around China, including in the Philippines, for years. If a war breaks out over Taiwan, US forces stationed across the Philippine Islands will inevitably join the fight. It will not stop with the bases currently planned. The conflict would escalate quickly, requiring the US to deploy tens of thousands of troops and several hundred aircraft to the Philippines. Hundreds of American missiles would be launched daily from the islands towards Chinese targets. If China doesn't counter that, it would get pummeled. China would surely respond, as it wouldn't want its invasion of Taiwan to fail. So China would likely bomb various sites across the Philippines. It could hit fixed bases using missiles and planes. But the US would also operate numerous mobile ground units along the northwestern coast of the Philippines, launching various missiles. To truly neutralize those, China might decide it's worth trying to actually place its own troops there as well, competing with US troops for that area. Let one thing be clear, China would not attempt a full invasion of the Philippines, even if it wanted to. It lacks the capacity to seize so many islands and so much territory, while the invasion of Taiwan consumes most of its forces. A full invasion would also risk turning the Philippine population into active opponents. The political cost would be prohibitive. What is plausible are area-limited incursions, long-duration raids across a range of locations. Targets could include most of Palawan, the smaller islands north of Palawan, the Babuyan and Batan's Islands north of Luzon, and possibly small time-limited raids on northeastern Luzon or Mindoro. Those are the areas most likely to be used by the US launching their missiles. Though Luzon especially would be teaming with US and local troops, so there China might opt for saboteurs and special ops in hiding. It would be high-risk, high-cost mission for China, done only if they deem risking manpower to get troops to shore, to extract them, and to supply them is worth the effort. So it would happen only if air power alone can't find targets well enough. To mount even limited amphibious or airborne insertions, China would first have to establish air superiority out to the Philippine coast. Without that, there would be little chance of sending and sustaining troops ashore. While some raids might be inserted by submarines, true island invasions involving units numbering in the thousands require boats or rotorcraft. Those must be able to operate without being fired upon, so the Chinese Navy would need to sail within a few miles of Palawan or the islands north of Luzon, and Chinese fighter jets would need to patrol the area for hours without meaningful interference. We are talking about a situation where Chinese air power is more numerous and more powerful than the US one, locally around Philippines of course. That's obviously very hard to achieve for China, especially with the fight for Taiwan going on to the north. But let's take a look at what it would actually take. At present, the United States has access to 3 Filipino air bases and 2 airports, some of which are basic airstrips. The Philippine Air Force operates 6 more additional bases not shared with the United States, along with at least one other short runway airfield that could support the Marine Corps F-35B VTOL fighters. Once war begins, a key decision would shape everything. If the Philippines refused to let the United States use its bases, China would have little reason to attack the country. But if the Philippines side with the US, American military presence would likely expand quickly beyond the bases already agreed upon. Some civilian airports might even be converted for military use, though the Philippine government might limit that cooperation. Altogether, there could be a dozen or more air bases capable of hosting US fighter jets. Most would need new aprons and facilities, but those can be quickly constructed. So most bases might support up to 24 aircraft. That means well over 100, possibly up to 250 American jets could operate from the Philippines alone, not counting civilian airports or newly built sites. Beyond that, many more US aircraft would be based on the Ryukyu Islands, as well as on Palau and Guam, and aboard several nearby carriers. Much like Chinese forces, most of those would be focused on operations over Taiwan. As for the attacker, China could concentrate its air forces and, for a few days, focus more on the Philippines to try to neutralize United States bases there, even if that meant a few days without big offensive operations over Taiwan. That would require a favorable situation in Taiwan, and probably would not occur in the opening stages of the Taiwan campaign, if it happens at all. Missile strikes would be the opening blows against bases in the Philippines, followed by aircraft strikes after runways are damaged and US aircraft are unable to take off. But infrastructure can be repaired, so strikes might need to be repeated often, diverting sizable resources from the Taiwan fight. If China sees that it can use just aircraft to detect and neutralize US shoot-and-scoot units around the islands, it would definitely do that first. Landing troops would be considered only if air power could not find and destroy the US mobile launcher units. With growing satellite networks, the idea of needing ground troops is questionable, but if all else fails, putting forces on Babuyan and Batan's would stop missile launches from those islands. Denying those launch sites to the US matters a great deal to China. It could be the difference between US forces covering all of Taiwan and even parts of mainland China with precision strike missiles, and US forces only covering southern Taiwan. Babuyan and Batan's are by far the most likely Philippine islands China might take. Palawan to the south is important but less likely to be taken. It's huge and hard to control, so it would be costly for China. It is far enough from Taiwan that it does not directly affect Taiwan operations, but the US could use it as a staging area to seize Chinese-held islands in the South China Sea, and if those are taken, US naval and air power could threaten southern China, including Hainan, which hosts China's largest naval bases and offers protected maintenance areas. Controlling the South China Sea would therefore indirectly affect China's chances in the Taiwan campaign. Taking Palawan would require an order of magnitude more troops than seizing Babuyan and Batan's, and large logistics to keep them supplied. It would resemble a small Taiwan invasion, and so might have to wait until China has enough assets freed from the Taiwan fight. A large-scale invasion of northern Luzon would be too big of a bite, although Luzon could directly disrupt Taiwan operations. But simply having undercover special ops teams roam Luzon might help China's cause as well. However, if the US chooses to commit hundreds of thousands of troops to secure the Philippines, neither Palawan nor Luzon would be sensible objectives for China. Even without air superiority, the US could probably hold Palawan given sufficient forces. A major question is the Philippine armed forces. They are not small and would certainly defend their territory from enemy incursions. They are fairly poorly equipped, and without US support, their effectiveness could be limited. With the US forces, however, they could provide enough volume to deny much of the Philippines to Chinese units. Their biggest challenge would be security watch. The vastness of the archipelago would require most troops to monitor and patrol, watching out for Chinese saboteurs. This means the Philippines could not easily deploy, for example, 30,000 troops to Palawan alone. Another uncertainty is the willingness of Filipino reservists. How eager would they be to fight, and would the government attempt broader mobilization if the population opposed aiding the US in the war? Much depends on China's actions, what attacks it launches, where and which islands it lands on. As mentioned, all discussion of Chinese troops on Philippine islands is speculative. China may decide the risk is not worth it. A full invasion is completely out of the question. Still, the Philippines are too strategically important for both the US and China to be ignored. If the US and China go to war over Taiwan, the Philippines will inevitably be drawn into the conflict. And remember, Binkov may talk about war, but only real peace can bring us all together.